So welcome back to another video. In this one we're going to do something a little bit unusual for the channel. We're going to talk a little bit about something that is not directly FIFA related or gaming related, but it's something that you can use to maybe have a little bit more fun in the game in FIFA. Because whenever you want to play like with real teams, if you're like me, you want to play with real teams and you want to play as realistically as possible, but you don't know all that much about the team because you're not watching them on a weekly basis, or they're playing in a league that have very little coverage. You don't have time to watch every game. Of course, you can Google and hope that someone has done like an analysis of how they play, and you can try to incorporate that into the game. But often there's no data available. I mean, there's data available, but there's no content available explaining how the team is playing, which players are the key players, and so on. So that's basically the background for me making this video, because over on FBref.com, which is footballreference.com, they have a lot of advanced stats that I like to use. And we're gonna do a specific example, because they have some stats that are very useful if you combine the instructions from FIFA, the team instructions that are set by default in the game. That will tell you a lot about how a team should play in terms of directness, width, and things like that. But obviously the thing you cannot tell from those tactics and instructions is which player is doing what. If you know what I mean, usually you have some players on the team that are in charge of passing, doing progressive passing. Maybe they are in charge of carrying the ball past the lines to create something. Roles like that not necessarily is a given just by looking at their stats and their attributes in the game. If you head over to FBref and you go on squad and player stats, you will have something available here that I hope is visible on the screen. Let's see, I'm gonna adjust it a little bit. So the two stats I'm talking about here, I'm thinking about for this specific topic, is these progression stats. So they basically have two progression stats, which is progression carries, which basically means the number of carries that move the ball towards the opponent's goal line by at least 10 yards from the furthest point of the last 6 passes, or any carry into the penalty area. To simplify this basically means the amount of, I guess you can call it dribbles. It's not dribbles necessarily, but it's carrying the ball for 10 yards in the opponent's half, to simplify it. So this can tell you a lot about which players are actually progressing the ball the most by carrying the ball in the opponent's half. And then you have something called progressive passes. And this is completed passes that move the ball towards the opponent's goal line by at least 10 yards. So it's basically the same thing, but for passes instead of carries. And in this chart on the top right here, you can see the accumulated stats for each team. And that is fine. I mean, that will tell you a little bit, but not too much, because what we want to see is progression stats per player. And that is something we can see down here on the player standard stats. And here we're going to take a look at the Premier League. We're going to take a look at several leagues, but we're going to start with the Premier League. So basically this is going to show you for the entire league. You can also go into the team specific stats if you want to see for a specific team, to see which players are doing the carrying and which players are doing the passing. Just out of curiosity, let's take a look here at the English Premier League, the accumulated stats for the entire league for the entire season so far. And up top, progression carries, you have Bukayo Saka with 98, which is far above the two second guys, which is Jack Grealish and Martinelli. This will give you a pinpoint about which players are carrying the ball the most in the opposing half league wide. And you might see some interesting names, some surprising names maybe. Of course, this will not give players any type of credit, if you know what I mean. It's not like Bukayo Saka is the best ball carrier just because he has the most, but it tells you a lot about how the team plays and what his role is on that team. And that's the entire point of this stat. It is basically a stat that I try to use. I haven't used it all that much yet, but I will try to use it more in my like gameplay and tactics video, because this is going to tell you a lot about the lesser known teams when you do research, like which players are supposed to carry the ball and pass the ball in the opposing half, which can be very useful. It can add like a little bit of realism to your gameplay. You also have progressive passes. Let's take a look at this just for out of curiosity. So for progressive passes, you have a lot of Manchester City names up top here. Or I mean, not a lot, but you have at least a couple. You have Rodri and KDB, which will make a lot of sense if you think about it. Manchester City have a lot of possession on the opposing half, and they like to pass the ball. It's Rodri and it's KDB who passes the ball on that team. And Declan Rice is also very high on both carries and progressive passes, so he's extremely important player on that West Ham team. Then you have Bruno Fernandes, and then maybe surprisingly Benjamin White is 50 in the league in progressive passes, which is basically forward passes on the opponent's half. So let's jump over to some other leagues. I think we can take a look at maybe the Spanish league and then the Italian league. Then we can take a look at a couple of teams just to see specifically how we can use this like analysis for a specific team. So let's take a look at the Italian league. Okay, so for the Italian league progressive carries, you have Rafael Leao from AC Milan. You have Laurienté, the Frenchman from Sassuolo, who is making a good impact in Sassuolo this year. He's like one of the surprises, I think. You have Deulofeu, Theo Hernandez, and Kvaratskhelia, as well as Politano, the two Napoli wingers. For progressive passes, we have Giovanni Di Lorenzo, which is the right back for Napoli, and also Mario Rui, which basically will imply that Napoli do a lot of passes from wide positions with the wingbacks, which is very interesting to know, I guess. Also, Sofiane Amrabat is having a real good season for Fiorentina there. I guess he, without knowing specifically how Fiorentina plays, from this stat, I would assume he's a deep-lying playmaker trying to play vertical passes upfield, try to break the lines. So that is very interesting to take a look at. Coop Miners, Pessina, Biraggi, which I guess, is he still for Fiorentina? I think so. You have Wallace, you have Milinkovic-Savic. Very interesting to see those names here. So let's jump over to the Spanish Primera just to take a look at that. Okay, so for the La Liga progressive carries, we have Mr. Vini Jr. No surprise there, I guess. Then on second place, we have Francisco Garcia, who I have no idea I don't even know which team this guy is playing on. Let's see if we can find that out. Rayo Vallecano, okay. So that is interesting. Then we have Nico Williams, we have Ousmane Dembélé, we have Samuel, Javi Galan, and some other guys. Let's take a look at progressive passes. Toni Kroos, no surprise, I guess. Dani Parejo as well. We have Pedri, Sergi Darder. Sergi Darder is having like a huge impact player for Espanyol. He's like 4th in progressive passes, and he was pretty high up as well on progressive carries. So he's like the main guy in the midfield there, it would seem. We also have Moi Gomez, Mikel Vesca, Frenkie, Sergio Busquets, and so on. So let's finish the video by taking a look at one specific team to see if we can analyze a little bit how they play. Let's do two teams. Like first team, we're going to do like a famous team, which I guess we all know how they play. We can take a look at the Real Madrid, and then we're going to take a look at some other team at the end, like a bonus team. So let's jump into the Real Madrid specific statistics here and take a look at them. Okay, for Real, we have progressive carries. Vini, of course. He was first in the league, so he's going to be first here as well. Then we have Rodrigo, Fede Valverde, Camavinga, and Benzema, and so on down here, I guess. This basically tells you all you need to know. Whenever Vini gets the ball, he's supposed to carry the ball, try to create something with his dribbling. And also Rodrigo and Valverde, to a certain degree, they are like the right winger, right? Because Fede Valverde is playing right wing a lot right now. And then Rodrigo as well, also playing right wing, either from the start or off the bench. And then you have the midfielders and Benzema. For the passes, it's gonna be Kroos and Modric, no surprise. Fede Valverde as well, being an influential player on the right side. Vini on the left, he dribbles. Fede on the right, he can dribble and pass, right? So they have a lot of flexibility with the right wing position. Camavinga is going to be a key player in addition to Kroos and Modric. So he can do a little bit of everything right there. And yeah, I mean, doesn't tell you a whole lot that we didn't know. But let's take a look at some other team. Maybe we can do one of these teams I've been playing with just to see. Let's do, for example, let's take a look at Roma. Okay, so for Roma right here, you see the number of progressive passes is way less than Real Madrid. And I'm not sure how to exactly analyze that or what to get from that, but the most carries is going to be Spinazzola and Zalewski, which I think are both playing on wingback positions. Then you have Pellegrini, Dybala, Zaniolo. So there's not a whole lot of progressive carries, which basically can mean two things. That they don't have like a lot of possession on the opposing half. They don't have like the opportunity to do a lot of progressive carries basically. They're not carrying the ball all that much in the opposing half because it's not their style of play. Maybe they like to play more direct football and rely a lot more on parking the bus, laying low, observing the opposing press in the attack, and then try to go on counters on their own. That might be a reason. The number of progressive passes, here we have a little bit higher numbers, although not on the same level as the Real Madrid, obviously. I think it's also very clear to see that the Real Madrid, they have a lot of possession and they dominate matches a lot on the opposing team's half, which basically allow them to accumulate these stats to a higher degree than, for example, Roma. But as I said in the beginning of the video, this is gonna rely a lot on the playstyle of the team and the coach's mentality and the tactics. We see here Brian Cristante, who is one of the midfielders. He has the most progressive passes. Also, Nemanja Matic has a lot, and Lorenzo Pellegrini as well. So the three midfielders on Roma have a lot of progressive passes, which could tell you that they try to make the most of the central areas of the pitch, I would guess. Based on these, they give the ball, try to get these midfielders enough time in the midfield to do a progressive pass, try to find that through ball. And then we have also Roger Ibanez and Gianluca Mancini, which are the central defenders. Paulo Dybala as well, 44. I mean, Paulo Dybala, one of the key attacking players, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's sixth on the team in terms of progressive passes. And he also doesn't have a whole lot of progressive carries. So how to interpret this? Other people more qualified than me, but I would say that this team plays very conservatively, if they even have the ball all that much on the opposing half. But it would seem they try to get the ball to the midfielders and then pass it to the strikers, and the strikers for the quick finish. The strikers are not supposed to be involved in the build-up in any way, it seems like. So that's basically the way I interpret these stats. That was it. This is the thing I wanted to talk about. This can help you a lot to interpret and try to incorporate like a real-life style of play into FIFA, if that's your thing. If you have any feedback for this, let me know in the comments. I might do some more like statistical things. There's a lot of statistics available here on this site. So if you are like a stat junkie like me, you're gonna enjoy this a lot, especially if you actually follow the leagues and you want like a little bit of a different type of statistic than you are usually served on like these broadcasts on these big TV networks. So this can give you a little bit more insight about what's actually happening at a lot of teams. So yeah, that's gonna be it. Thanks for watching, guys. Until the next one, stay safe and take care. See you guys.